These new text messages proves that she was putting her foot down when Blake was trying to step all over her husband.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Flossom Talk. I'm Tashti Floor, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. Okay, so I'm trying to keep my head straight here, but it's really challenging because there's so much new information. The last 24 hours have been crazy. There's so much new evidence that's been unsealed that I spoke about earlier this week that we've been waiting for. And also, Blake filed her answer or her response to Justin Baldoni's summary judgment, or motion for summary judgment. She is trying to explain to the judge why her case has to go to trial and not be tossed out as Baldoni suggested. And it's getting juicy. And she's bringing in new people now that we didn't really know had a bad experience until now. So we're going to go through that, as well as another female who has entered the conversation here, Justin Baldoni's wife, Emily. These new text messages proves that she was putting her foot down when Blake was trying to step all over her husband. And I love that the internet is praising her right now, in big contrast actually to the producer of the movie, Alex Sachs, who we really didn't hear much about earlier. And now she's apparently the new villain here. Let's get into it. And also some more text messages from Justin Baldoni has been unsealed. One of them explaining how he wants to pray for Blake Lively and how devastated he is. I find it so interesting that we still haven't seen any text messages or email from Blake Lively personally explaining to people how hard this is for her to be a part of this movie when the environment on the set is so toxic. Still nothing in this summary judgment response. Half of it is just redacted, so it's really impossible to get the full picture of what she's trying to explain here because she doesn't want anyone to know. Anyways, there's more interesting text messages here. One from TMZ, who's throwing shade at People magazine, accusing them of lying. And also, now we know why Brendan Sklenar jumped ship. Not only was he promised the sequel of It Ends With Us, but Paul Feig just came out, the director. Remember the one that directed Blake Lively in A Simple Favor and Another Simple Favor? He just came out and admitted why he hired Brendan Sklenar in his upcoming movie, The Housemaid. So let's get into all the juicy details. I'm going to skip the summary judgment response from Stephanie Jones. I haven't had time to look at it, but I'll say that for tomorrow as well. But let's get through Blake's summary judgment response first. First of all, she didn't actually file this on time. She missed the deadline and she filed this after midnight. Which is not a good look to begin with. So here's a little quote from what they're saying. Defendants campaigns to transform Lively, a mother of four with decades of experience in the industry who simply sought a safe and respectful workplace, into a bully who took over Baldoni's film is not a defense to harassment, retaliation, defamation, or any claim Lively has advanced. I don't agree with that on so many levels. First of all, they have to say that, oh, she's a mother of four, like that makes her a better person. It doesn't necessarily make you a better person just because you're a mother of four. But where her entire argument just falls apart is when she's claiming that she was powerless. And then there's all this evidence that she tried to take over the movie. And that doesn't look good for her claims of S-aged and an unsafe work environment, especially because of that 17-point thing that they asked Baldoni and the Wayfair parties to sign of all the things that they needed to correct on the set before she returned, and they signed it and nothing happened after that. That proves that she wasn't powerless. She got everything she wanted. And they really failed to defend themselves against that. And they're also saying to the judge, hey, judge, we need to use California law here because that fits us better in this case because California rules are stricter. And then they're saying that some emails were sent from California. And then they're saying that There was a Zoom call from California, and that Jamie Heath said something to Blake Lively when he was in California. So, I mean, this just looks so weak to me. And they also used a quote here from Jamie Heath to try to make him into a villain, saying that other actions in California set the tone for harassment. Shortly after Miss Lively accepted the role of Lily Bloom, Miss Heath remarked that Miss Lively would be birthed into the role, a statement that sexualized her and invoked female reproductive imagery to describe her professional contributions. This objectification made from California, blah, blah, blah. So what they're trying to do here is really set the tone for the judge to convince him that he should apply California law. This is just so weak to me. As you know, the movie was shot in New Jersey. Blake Lively lives in New York. She was on the set in New Jersey. Just because Jamie Heath and Baldoni has home addresses in California, she can't, I mean, yeah. They also claim that she was an employee because she got paid by them. So she has to be treated as an employee. And that's why this harassment case should stand. And there's some changes to her story here, because now all of a sudden she's saying that Jamie Heath entered her trailer while she was undressed and gawked at her body. I hadn't heard that before. We've heard Jamie Heath explain what happened in this situation, that he entered the room and she wasn't properly dressed, so he was told not to look her in the eye. And then she said afterwards that, hey, you looked me in the eye. And then she explained that she didn't think that he was trying to take a cup. But now apparently she said that he gawked at her body. They're also saying that she was undressed. I wonder what they mean by that, because she was obviously wearing something, otherwise they would have worded it differently. And I was thinking, I showed the other day this Instagram story that Blake posted herself recently when she was just wearing a tiny towel. So that made me wonder, is that what she was wearing when he entered her trailer? That was so inappropriate, but she's okay wearing a little towel on an Instagram story that she's sharing with the entire world from her private bathroom. That doesn't make much sense. I want to know what she was actually wearing when he entered that trailer. And also, when you're walking into a room to meet a person, it is very normal to look at the person when you greet them. She was expecting him to look down at his feet or just like look at the wall. I mean, there's so much here that doesn't really make any sense. And if she's trying to make this into SH, just saying that she felt he gawked at her body, come on. Yeah, so they're trying to get to Jamie Heath here for two things. That one episode, and also that he showed her a video after his wife had given birth. So those are the two SH accusations against Jamie Heath. If you watched my episode yesterday, I spoke a little bit about intent here and what the motive for the Wayfair parties to actually create a smear campaign against Blake Lively, that there's no intent there. There's no motive there, except in Blake's eyes, the only motive was to get revenge because she spoke up in these 17 points. But they have to prove that there is intent here. Retaliation usually happens when a company needs to silence someone to avoid a scandal or things like that. And the accuser is vulnerable. So she is in less power than the person she's accusing of something. While here, Blake, as I said, has power. She had power. And she used her power very willingly. And as I said yesterday, it doesn't make any sense that the Wayfair Party would start a smear campaign against Blake Lively when they're about to release their movie. It would only hurt themselves. It will be self-sabotaging. Why would they do that? Blake Lively needs to come up with a really good explanation for that, because revenge doesn't hold up. Okay, I'll probably talk more about Blake's response tomorrow. Let's get to some of that unsealed evidence. This is juicy stuff. So now producer Alex Sachs, which I haven't really spoken about before. I didn't think she had a big role. She hasn't really come out and, taken a side. I think she did repost one of Blake's posts about when this happened, the lawsuit. But other than that, we haven't really heard from her. And she wasn't mentioned much in Blake's first complaint in her when she filed the lawsuit, she wasn't a witness or anything like that. And all of a sudden now she had issues with Baldoni and Heath. So to give this a little bit of context, Alex Sachs said in an interview recently that she's the one who basically reached out to Blake. She's the one that attached Blake to the project. She says here that she already done a movie for Sony, who's also the distributor of It Ends With Us, No Hard Feelings. So with that in mind, casting Blake was one of the first things we did. She was the first person I went out to as a part of the team. I was thrilled, and I remember calling Justin, being so excited because aside from the fact that she's a phenomenal actress, I knew how much else she would bring to the project, blah, blah, blah. So keep that in mind. She was involved from the beginning here. Now in Blake's new filing, it says that the misbehavior continued. Baldoni's consistently yelled at Sachs and exhibited rageful yelling or interrupting reactions when Sachs spoke. Sachs recounted one time when Baldoni, upset with Sachs' input on the film, came up behind where she was sitting and yelled, and then slammed his hands on the chair next to her and stormed away. Sachs immediately warned Heath and Giannetti, seated behind her, that she would walk off the movie if Baldoni behaved that way again. As the only woman and non-Wayfair producer on the set, Sachs felt sidelined by Baldoni and Heath, and she also observed Baldoni being very dismissive of the film's screenwriter, Christy Hall, who he did not seem to respect as a female voice on the team and on a movie like this that felt especially bad. Okay, so first of all, if Baldoni was upset, I mean, I totally get it if he had bad days on this set because he was dealing with Blake Lively every single day. If he slammed his hands on a chair, I mean, also, why is this relevant for Blake Lively's SH complaints and retaliation complaint that some other woman, a producer on the set, said that Baldoni was disagreeing with her. Maybe she had terrible ideas for the movie and he was like, no, we're not doing that. And then she already teamed up with Blake and Justin was like, my God. And also the fact here that she said that Christy Hall, the screenwriter, felt that she wasn't respected as a female voice when we know that Ryan Reynolds rewrote the script that Christy wrote without her knowledge. And Blake just dropped that bomb on a red carpet interview, and Christy didn't even know about it until the premiere when someone told her. That's sidelining someone and not listening to someone. Anyways, we haven't heard from Christy Hall yet what happened there, so that's going to be interesting. I'm sure we're going to get some snippets from her version of this story soon as well. But they're just really desperately trying to create this illusion that a lot of women did not like Justin Baldoni on this set and had bad experiences with him. And apparently when Jenny Slate was really upset that Justin Baldoni had called her pants sexy, Sachs sent text messages to some of the leadership saying that we have real issues and suggested replacing the director and restricting Heath. So she wanted basically Justin Baldoni kicked off his own movie because people felt uncomfortable with him. She also said that Wayfair did not investigate any of this, but there were no official complaints. As you know, Blake never went to HR. She never filed any complaints anywhere. And I found this post on Reddit, which reads, Alex Sachs Depot, the two-faced snake producer, was upset that Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath didn't allow her to take charge of the movie. What the F? And here is the snippet saying, because I knew that I was more than capable of running the movie. They just weren't letting me. And so his presence was actually not needed. So if he was making someone so uncomfortable, I didn't see the reason for him to be there. Okay, I see some similarities here with Alex Sachs and Blake Lively. So I don't get what they were supposed to investigate here. Investigate that Justin Baldoni said to Jenny Slate, oh, your pants look sexy. What? Anyways, now I feel like we know exactly where Alex Sachs stands here. Let's see if she's going to have some interesting projects coming up with Ryan Reynolds in the future. There is an interview also with her that I'll go through more another day, where she talks about working with Justin, and she also talks about how involved Colleen Hoover was in the entire process of the screenwriting process and the entire movie and everything, how involved Colleen Hoover was. And as you know, Colleen Hoover denied that recently and said that she felt left out and she didn't get a word in. So there's so many different stories here now. People are contradicting themselves, they're contradicting each other, there's so much lying. So let's see what happens when Alex Sachs' entire deposition gets unsealed, what we'll learn from that. I feel like it's so weird that we didn't hear anything from her before now. Where was she? Where was she when Blake filed her initial complaint? We didn't hear about this, as I said, until now, that Baldoni stormed away. We have to remember that most movie sets are really stressful and there's so much going on, there's so much money involved. And of course, when you are a director, you need to keep control of the set. And I would bet a lot of money that there is no movie set in this town or in New York, wherever it's shot, that doesn't have conflict. It's just the way it is. You put a bunch of people together that's supposed to work together and they don't know each other beforehand, and everyone wants to have opinions and everyone wants to take control and ownership and power, as we've now learned. Of course, it will create friction on any movie sets. And there's a footnote here too saying that Sachs was present for this meeting. This is the meeting where Ryan and Blake was complaining, and described it in details to Giannetti, expressing admiration for Lively's professionalism and frustration at Baldoni and Heath's failure to take responsibility for their behavior. Anyways, let's get into a woman with integrity here. Emily Baldoni, Justin Baldoni's wife, has just entered the docket for the first time. She is being quoted here, and I love it. I felt like, as a fellow Scandinavian woman, I feel like, there's no BS here. She's from Sweden. She doesn't care about all this nonsense, this Hollywood nonsense, and she is giving it to them. And I love this because what she did here has had a huge impact on this case, because if she wouldn't have stepped in, which she did here, things could have looked very differently for Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties. So here's a text exchange between Mitz Tuskowitz and Jamie Heath. So this is at a time when Ryan Reynolds had sent them this statement that they said that they had to sign this press release where they would take all responsibility for all the bad press that Blake Lively received during the promotion, that it was all their fault. I've talked about it so many times. It's insane. I'm not going to read it again, but this is in correlation to that. So Mitz here is saying, any word from the terrorists? I'm assuming he's referring to Blake and Ryan here. And then Jamie said, ready to fight. Talked to Justin. Emily says, F no, we are not writing any letter. She made this bed, now she can effing living it. Let's fight. We're done. Mitz is saying, I effing love Emily. And Jamie is saying, yep. Mitz is saying, here we go. And Jamie says, heading to office now. Anyways, so that statement, if they would have signed that statement, which Emily made sure that they didn't do, things would have looked so much worse for them right now, because then they would have admitted faults and that would be terrible for them, obviously. And I'm so glad that Emily stepped in and said, F no, we are not signing any statement here. And I'm also so glad that Baldoni listened to his wife, something that he's been accused of throughout this entire lawsuit, that he never listens to women and that his feminism is just like an act. Well, this just proves the opposite. And it also proves that Emily is a badass, and I love it. Also, there's some evidence here that I mentioned in, which I found interesting. I thought it was Blake who actually filed this yesterday, but I realized it's from Baldoni's team. It's a lot about how the press is covering this. And Melissa Nathan sent a text message to the team with a Hollywood Reporter story about me, where I was interviewed about everything that was just after Blake Lively filed her lawsuit, and people came after me, accusing me of being a part of the smear campaign. And I gave a lengthy interview to The Hollywood Reporter, and Melissa Nathan forwarded that to the team. And then they added this picture of me, a whole page picture of me from that article. And that's the first thing I saw. I was like, why are they just putting a huge picture of me here? But now I get it. And kudos to Magnus for taking the photo. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get to more unsealings here, because there is a text message here from Justin Baldoni, and I think it says a lot about where he stood in this entire process. And this is also so bad for Blake's narrative, because when you hear what he said about her, it makes it impossible to believe that he was behind some vicious smear campaign against her. So he's saying here to his team of supporters, one of them being Rainn Wilson, the actor from The Office, who've been seen before. And he says here, Justin says here, I don't want to talk about it, dwell on it, or curse her. In fact, I want to do the opposite. Pray for her soul, for light to fill it. I'm staying as positive as I can. I know I have protection. This is where being a Baha'i matters. Can I send love, not be a victim or curse her, and still somehow show up and direct and act with kindness in my heart? All that's left for 3 weeks is our intense work together. That is what I could use prayers and strength for. I trust this group immensely. I love you all, and no talking about this to anyone. Just prayers for your boys over here being painted in a way I never thought possible. We will overcome. Then he receives a lot of praise from the group saying we support you. But I feel like when you see texts like this coming directly from Baldoni himself, how are they ever going to convince a jury that he's behind this smear campaign? I don't know what happened behind the scenes, and somehow I think Justin is probably not aware of everything that happened behind the scenes either. I think Melissa Nathan was running kind of her own show a little bit, but there's no evidence ever that Justin gave any green light to smear Blake Lively in any capacity. Where are the text messages that Blake Lively sent to her support group or to her people or to her friends or to her husband talking about this toxic work environment? We haven't seen any of that yet. Nothing. Why was she not talking about it? Because she wanted to stay private? That doesn't make any sense, because she went to the New York Times afterwards and told everything to them. So I really hope for her sake that she has some kind of communication with somebody telling them that she was suffering, but still nothing. And if you look through her latest documents, it's so much redactions there. It's like they don't want us to know what they're actually defending here, why they want this to go to trial, because it's almost impossible to read it. It is black after black after black after black after black, and you just have to try and read between the lines, which doesn't really make any sense. And I just think the whole thing is so ridiculous. And that's why the judge actually just came with another ruling saying that he needs to see all of this evidence now unsealed and remove the redactions so he can have a better look at everything. Because some of the evidence that's been refiled is really almost impossible to read. I don't know what they do with these text messages, if they put them through like an old-fashioned fax machine 10 times, so it's impossible to read them. But now the judge wants to see more, which means that he's really serious about looking into all of this straight away. Also a fun, interesting text message here that's been revealed from TMZ. So TMZ is talking to Melissa Nathan closely here, and TMZ texted Melissa saying, "People's story about Justin Baldoni is false about cast and crew hating him." So they're accusing people of being pro-Blake. Isn't that funny? Especially now we know how TMZ has been reporting on this and changing their headlines, changing the URLs. It's so shady. Anyways, they continue saying that we are told cast and crew find Justin a nice guy. Don't take as harsh of sides behind scenes as it's being reported. At this point, we're told it's being milked for publicity. Justin's over it. It really was creative differences between Blake and Justin, but it wasn't nearly as bad as reported. Blake's huge ego, etc., is the reporting, says TMZ. So yeah, so I find that funny. And also there's another text from Melissa Nathan here talking about a piece in New York Post that she says Leslie placed. And it says that Blake Lively was given final edit approval. And Melissa is sending this to Jennifer Abel, saying that Blake Lively was given final edit approval on It Ends With Us to make the movie more feminine, according to sources. The star and the rest of the cast are not speaking to director and co-star Justin Baldoni, and Brandon Sklenar particularly has a problem with him. We are told, although not greenlit as we predicted, there will now be a battle over the sequel. It starts with us. As Baldoni owns the rights to the film, but due to the rift with Lively, it's unknown what will happen yet. A source said there were 2 edits and the studio went with the more feminine edit. Blake had the right to do that. She had final edit approval. So that's what Leslie Sloan planted in New York Post. I mean, otherwise, how would they get this kind of information? And she's pointing out that Brendan Sklenar particularly has a problem with him. Where does that come from if it's not coming from Leslie Sloan? Talking about Brandon Sklenar here, this is a story that E! Online posted yesterday, saying Paul Feig reveals how Blake Lively played a part in making The Housemaid. That's his movie coming out in December. And guess who is starring in it? Brendan Sklenar. Paul Feig is Blake Lively's BFF. As you know, he directed her in A Simple Favor and also in Another Simple Favor. And he kept saying that she was wonderful to work with. And people have been asking themselves, why would someone like Brandon Sklenar, who never had an issue with Justin, all of a sudden jump ship? And here is the answer. Blake Lively had just worked with Brandon, Paul exclusively told E! News at a special screening of the film in New York. She just kept going on and on about how great he is. And I met him and I was like, yes, you are great and I love you. It says here that Paul Feig received a simple favor from a longtime friend. The director revealed that Blake Lively, who worked with him on A Simple Favor and Another Simple Favor, helped him cast one of the main roles in his upcoming film, The Housemaids, which stars Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried. So yeah, there you have it. This is what happens when you play on Blake Lively's team. She will help you get more work. And that's exactly what happened to Brandon Sklenar here. It's so obvious. And I feel the way that Paul Feig said this is kind of, he put his foot in his mouth here, saying that Blake Lively was involved. It's not going to help her. And it's a terrible look for Brandon Sklenar. Anyways, that's it for this episode, you guys. There's so much more to come. I haven't had the time to read through everything because there's so much, but I'm getting help from so many amazing people. And also, as I said, tomorrow is a big day because we're going to listen to that recording. And also, I'm going to go through a lot more stuff. And I'm sure there's much more explosive stuff coming our way. And yes, I'll keep you posted. So thank you so much for watching. And please subscribe. Someone said to me yesterday, you have to remind people that it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. So yes, it's completely free to subscribe to my channel. And also you can hit the notification bell. That's also free. So you never miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we flawsome
Bye.
talk.